June 11, 1965, Los Padres National Forest, California. A forest ranger named David Miller stood at the edge of a smoking wasteland that stretched as far as he could see. 508 acres of ancient forest reduced to ash, and scattered throughout the blackened landscape were bodies. Not human bodies, bird bodies, dozens of them. Massive birds with 9-foot wingspans, their charred corpses frozen in grotesque positions of flight interrupted by death. California condors, one of the rarest birds on Earth, and they were dead, all of them. 53 condors, nearly half of the entire species, wiped out in a single afternoon. The ranger's radio crackled. "Miller, we found the point of origin." "Where?" "Truck tracks, exhaust burns on the grass. We're running the plates now." 30 minutes later, they had a name. The vehicle belonged to a country music singer, someone Miller had actually heard of, Johnny Cash. And when investigators finally tracked Johnny down and asked him about the fire, about the dead endangered birds, about the destruction of federal land, Johnny's response became infamous. "I don't care about your damn yellow buzzards." If you want to discover the untold stories behind music's most shocking moments, subscribe now. Hit that notification bell, because what you're about to hear is the story of the day Johnny Cash's recklessness killed one of nature's rarest creatures, and how he never said he was sorry. Part 1, June 1965, the pill-fueled road trip. June 1965, Johnny Cash was at the height of his addiction and the lowest point of his humanity. He was 33 years old, famous, successful, married to Vivian Liberto with 4 daughters, and completely, utterly destroyed by amphetamines. Johnny was taking dozens of pills a day, uppers to stay awake, downers to sleep, more uppers to wake up. His body was a chemical battlefield. His judgment was non-existent. His marriage was collapsing. Vivian had filed for divorce earlier that year, citing Johnny's drug abuse and constant absence. He was touring 300 days a year, disappearing for days during pill binges, coming home paranoid and violent. June Carter, the woman who would eventually save him, was touring with him, but they weren't together yet. She was watching him self-destruct from the sidelines, powerless to stop it. In early June 1965, Johnny was supposed to be traveling from Nashville to California for a series of West Coast performances. But Johnny, high and erratic, decided to take a detour. He bought a camper truck, loaded it with fishing gear, and headed into the Los Padres National Forest in California, alone. No band, no manager, no handlers. Just Johnny, his pills, and the wilderness. "I needed to clear my head," Johnny would say years later. But the truth was simpler. He was running from his failed marriage, from his children, from the person he'd become. On June 11th, Johnny drove his camper deep into the forest, looking for a remote spot to fish and think. The area was beautiful, ancient oak trees, chaparral brush, wildlife everywhere. It was also tinder dry. California was in the middle of a severe drought. The Forest Service had issued warnings about fire danger. Any spark could ignite a catastrophe. But Johnny, high out of his mind, didn't care about warnings. Part 2, the spark. June 11th, 1965, around 2 p.m., Johnny found a clearing near a creek and parked his camper. He set up a small camp, pulled out his fishing rod, and tried to relax. But relaxation was impossible when you're on amphetamines. Johnny was jittery, paranoid, unable to sit still. He paced around a clearing, smoked cigarettes, took more pills. At some point, Johnny would later claim he didn't remember exactly when, he started the camper's engine. Maybe to move to a different spot. Maybe to run the heater, even though it was June. Maybe for no reason at all, except that his drug-addled brain told him to. The camper was old. The exhaust system was damaged. When Johnny revved the engine, the exhaust pipe, which was hanging low and scraping the ground, began shooting sparks into the dry grass beneath the truck. Johnny didn't notice. He was inside the camper, doing God knows what, probably taking more pills. Within minutes, the dry grass ignited. The flames spread to nearby brush, then to trees, then to more trees. By the time Johnny noticed the smoke, it was too late. Johnny stumbled out of the camper to find himself surrounded by fire. The flames were spreading fast, fed by drought-dry vegetation and strong winds. The brush crackled and roared. Smoke filled the air. Johnny had 2 choices: try to fight the fire or save himself. He chose himself. He jumped in the camper and drove out of the forest as fast as he could, leaving the fire behind him. He didn't call the fire department, didn't alert rangers, just fled. By the time forest rangers spotted the smoke and arrived, the fire had spread across hundreds of acres. They fought it for 7 hours. Helicopters dumped water, Ground crews created fire breaks. By nightfall, they'd contained it. But the damage was done. 508 acres of Los Padres National Forest, ancient oak woodland and chaparral habitat, were destroyed. And scattered throughout the burn zone, rangers found something heartbreaking. Dead birds. Massive birds. California condors. The California condor is one of the largest flying birds in North America. 9-foot wingspan, 25 pounds. Prehistoric looking, with a bald head and neck, black feathers, and a hooked beak. In 1965, there were only about 100 California condors left in the entire world. They were critically endangered. Every single bird mattered. And Johnny Cash's fire killed 53 of them. Why couldn't they escape? Condors nest in caves and cliff faces in remote areas. Los Padres National Forest was one of their last refuges. When the fire swept through, many condors were roosting or nesting. The smoke and flames came too fast. Some tried to fly away, but were overcome by smoke inhalation. Others burned to death in their nests. A few managed to escape, but were so badly burned they died later. When rangers found the bodies, some were still smoking. Massive birds reduced to charred remains. David Miller, the ranger who surveyed the damage, later said in an interview, "I'd never seen anything like it. These majestic creatures wiped out in an afternoon. And for what? Because some famous guy was careless?" The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was notified immediately. This wasn't just a forest fire. This was an ecological catastrophe. And they wanted answers. They wanted accountability. They wanted Johnny Cash. Within 24 hours, investigators traced the fire's origin to Johnny's camper. Tire tracks, exhaust burns, witnesses who'd seen a camper in the area. Federal agents tracked Johnny down in Los Angeles, where he was supposed to perform that night. They showed up at his hotel room. Johnny answered the door, still high, disheveled, annoyed. "Mr. Cash, we need to ask you some questions about a fire in Los Padres National Forest yesterday." Johnny's face didn't change. "What fire?" "The fire that destroyed 508 acres of federal land. The fire that started near where your vehicle was parked." Johnny shrugged. "I don't know anything about that." "Mr. Cash, we have evidence placing your vehicle at the point of origin. We need you to come with us." Johnny was questioned for hours. At first, he denied everything. Then he admitted being in the forest, but claimed he didn't start any fire. Finally, confronted with physical evidence, exhaust burns matching his truck, he admitted the fire probably started from his vehicle. "It was an accident," Johnny said. "The exhaust sparked the grass. I didn't mean for it to happen." "Did you attempt to put out the fire?" "No, it was too big." "Did you call for help?" "No." "Why not?" Johnny didn't answer. The investigators then told him about the condors. 53 dead, nearly half the remaining population of one of the world's rarest birds. Johnny's response, according to the official report, was, "That's unfortunate." But multiple sources, including rangers who were present, claim Johnny said something else, something that would haunt his reputation for decades. "I don't care about your damn yellow buzzards." Whether Johnny actually said this is disputed. Johnny denied it for years, but the quote spread, and it became part of the legend of Johnny Cash, the rebel who didn't care about anything or anyone. The U.S. government sued Johnny Cash for $125,127 in damages. This included the cost of fighting the fire and the ecological destruction to federal land. But they couldn't charge him for the condors. Why? Because in 1965, the Endangered Species Act didn't exist yet. It wouldn't be passed until 1973, so killing 53 critically endangered birds was legally just unfortunate. The lawsuit went to court. Johnny's lawyers argued it was an accident. The government argued it was negligence. Johnny drove a faulty vehicle into a drought-stricken forest during a fire warning, then fled without reporting it. The court sided with the government. Johnny was ordered to pay $82,001 in damages. For context, in 1965, that was the equivalent of about $750,000 in today's money, a massive fine. Johnny paid it, but he didn't apologize. In interviews about the incident, Johnny was defiant. "It was an accident. Yes, I was on pills. Yes, I shouldn't have been in the forest. Yes, I should have reported the fire, but I didn't intend to hurt anything." When pressed about the condors, Johnny's answer was always the same. "I feel bad about the birds, but accidents happen." No remorse, no soul-searching, no acknowledgement that his recklessness had contributed to pushing an entire species closer to extinction.
Years later, Johnny would express regret about many things from his pill years, but the condor fire, he never really apologized, not genuinely.
The loss of 53 California condors in a single day was catastrophic for the species. By 1982, just 17 years after Johnny's fire, there were only 22 California condors left in the wild. The species was on the brink of total extinction. Conservationists made a desperate decision: capture all remaining wild condors and start a captive breeding program. In 1987, the last wild California condor was captured. The species was extinct in the wild. Over the next decades, through intensive breeding programs, conservationists slowly brought the species back. Condors were reintroduced to the wild in the 1990s. Today, there are about 500 California condors, half in the wild, half in captivity. The species is still critically endangered, but no longer on the immediate brink of extinction. But biologists say the 1965 fire was a major setback. Those 53 birds, if they had survived and bred, could have meant hundreds more condors today. Genetic diversity was lost, breeding potential was lost. Dr. Noel Snyder, a condor conservation pioneer, said in a 2003 interview, "The Cache fire was a disaster we're still recovering from. Those weren't just 53 birds, they were 53 potential parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. The ripple effect of that loss is incalculable." And Johnny? He lived another 38 years after the fire, made more music, got sober, found redemption in many ways, but he never became an advocate for conservation, never donated to condor recovery programs, never publicly acknowledged the full weight of what he'd done. Part 8. Johnny's later reflections. In his 1997 autobiography, Johnny devoted exactly 2 paragraphs to the Los Padres fire. Here's what he wrote. "I caused a forest fire that burned several hundred acres and killed some endangered birds, California condors to be specific. I was young and high and didn't understand the consequences of my actions. The government sued me and I paid. It was a painful lesson." That's it. 2 paragraphs, no deep reflection, no real apology to the environmental community, no acknowledgement of the species-level harm. Compare this to how Johnny wrote about other mistakes from his pill years, hurting his family, missing his daughter's childhoods, destroying his first marriage. Those sections are filled with regret, pain, genuine sorrow. But the condors? Just a painful lesson. Why the disconnect? Some who knew Johnny believe he genuinely didn't understand the gravity of what he'd done. To Johnny, they were just birds. He'd grown up in rural Arkansas where hunting and killing animals was normal. The idea that these particular birds mattered more, that they were irreplaceable, didn't compute. Others believe Johnny felt defensive. The condor incident was used against him for years by critics who said he was reckless, selfish, destructive. So Johnny dug in, refused to give them the satisfaction of a full apology. And some believe Johnny simply couldn't face it, that acknowledging the full weight of killing 53 endangered birds, contributing to a species near extinction, was too painful, so he minimized it. Whatever the reason, Johnny Cash went to his grave without ever fully reckoning with the Los Padres fire.
Today, if you visit Los Padres National Forest, you can still see scars from the 1965 fire. Some areas have regrown. Others are still recovering 60 years later. And if you're lucky, very lucky, you might see a California condor soaring overhead. A massive bird with a 9-foot wingspan, gliding on thermal currents, prehistoric and beautiful. There are ranger-led programs about condor conservation, educational signs about the species near extinction and recovery. But nowhere in Los Padres National Forest will you find mention of Johnny Cash. No plaque, no memorial, no acknowledgement that one of music's greatest legends almost wiped out one of nature's rarest creatures. It's as if the forest wants to forget. But conservationists haven't forgotten. In environmental circles, the Johnny Cash fire is still referenced as an example of how human negligence can devastate ecosystems. And in the Cash family, the incident remains complicated. Roseanne Cash, Johnny's daughter, was asked about it in a 2015 interview. "The condor fire is something our family doesn't talk about much. My dad made a terrible mistake during his worst years. He paid for it legally, but I don't think he ever fully understood what he'd done ecologically. He was a man of his time. Conservation wasn't something rural people thought about much in the 1960s. John Carter Cash, Johnny's son, was more defensive in a 2018 interview. "People focus on the condor fire like it defines my father. It doesn't.
It was an accident during his addiction. He wasn't trying to hurt anything. Yes, it was tragic, but my father did more good in his life in that one mistake. Both statements reveal the tension, acknowledging the harm while defending the man they loved. So, Part 10, the question that remains. Here's what we know for certain. Johnny Cash's damaged exhaust started a fire in Los Padres National Forest on June 11, 1965. The fire burned 508 acres. 53 California condors died. Johnny was sued and paid $82,001. He never fully apologized or engaged with conservation efforts. Here's what we'll never know. Did Johnny really say, "I don't care about your damn yellow buzzards"? Did he genuinely not understand the ecological impact, or did he just not care? If June had been with him that day, would she have stopped him from driving into the forest? Would the California condor have recovered faster if those 53 birds had lived? And here's the most uncomfortable question. Can we separate Johnny Cash, the artist, the voice of outcasts, the champion of prisoners, the man in black who stood up for the forgotten, from Johnny Cash, the man who killed 53 endangered birds and never really said he was sorry? The answer depends on who you ask. Music fans say it was an accident during his worst period. It doesn't define him. Conservationists say accidents have consequences and he never took full responsibility. Both are right. Both are incomplete. Johnny Cash was a complex, contradictory human being. He could be compassionate and cruel, heroic and reckless, a voice for the voiceless, and a man who didn't care about 53 rare birds dying because of him. He was capable of great good and terrible harm, often in the same lifetime, sometimes in the same year. The Los Padres fire is a reminder that legends are still human, that fame doesn't exempt you from consequences, that redemption is possible, but it requires actually trying. And Johnny? He tried for a lot of things, made amends for a lot of mistakes. But the 53 condors, they remain the exception, the harm he never quite owned, the birds that died, and the apology that never came.
Epilogue, June 11th, 2025. 60 years after the fire. Los Padres National Forest is hosting a condor viewing event. Families gather with binoculars, watching the skies. A ranger gives a presentation about condor conservation, about how the species nearly went extinct, about the decades of work to bring them back. A young girl raises her hand. What almost made them go extinct? The ranger pauses. Lots of things: habitat loss, lead poisoning from ammunition, and accidents, human carelessness. She doesn't mention Johnny Cash. Most of the audience probably wouldn't even know the story. But later, an older man approaches the ranger. "I noticed you didn't mention the 1965 fire." The ranger sighs. "We don't usually bring it up. People come here to celebrate condors, not to relitigate old controversies." "But it's part of the story, isn't it?" "Yes, it's part of the story. A famous musician caused a fire that killed 53 condors. He paid a fine, he moved on with his life. The condors, they almost didn't. Do you think he should have done more?" The ranger looks up at the sky where a condor soars, massive, ancient, improbable, a survivor. She thinks, "I think," she says slowly, "that we all have a responsibility to the world around us. And when we fail that responsibility, accidentally or not, we should try to make it right. Not just legally, not just financially, but truly." And did he? No, he didn't. The condor disappears beyond the ridgeline. The ranger watches it go. But the condors are still here, despite him, despite all of us. They're survivors, and maybe that's the lesson. That nature is more resilient than our worst mistakes, but only barely, only if we fight for it. She turns to leave, then stops. "I grew up listening to Johnny Cash. I walked the line, Ring of Fire, songs that changed my life. And I have to hold both truths at once, that he was a great artist
and that he caused real harm. Both things are true, and neither cancels out the other.